Please explain to me, who raised these people? What the is wrong with them?
We are huge Trump supporters. If you didn't get the email on Monday, you're safe. And I'm like skipping down the halls, right? Like, you know, I get to stay. Wednesday, late afternoon, I received a notice that I have an appointment, a Teams appointment with my supervisor on Friday at 9 o'clock. So I knew that I wasn't safe anymore.
You were skipping down the hall. You were so excited when you thought you were safe. You knew others were suffering and gonna suffer, but you knew you were safe. You were cool with it.
Cutting costs and waste and fraud and. We love that big picture. I love that big picture. My friends, you know, we were excited about that because it is true.
I could just picture you and your friends, glasses of cheap wine, just laughing over others and how others are gonna get affected.
The common theme is, you know, we voted for this. You knew this was coming, but we didn't. Like, nobody that I've talked to understood the devastation that having this administration in office would do to our lives, but other people that we love and care about too within the Mid-Ohio Valley.
It's only when you're affected that you actually feel bad about something. You don't have any regrets for everyone else. It's that you got affected. You're despicable. You're disgusting. How does it feel?
It's hard. It's wrecking.
Good.
You ever hear somebody say that Black people weren't really affected by the Great Depression? We were not immune to the worst economic crisis the U.S. had seen up until that point. Not only were we affected, we were hit first. We were hit hardest. And we were left out of the recovery process.
For decades, a lot of people in America had a misunderstanding. They believed poverty was a Black issue. They thought struggling to pay rent, relying on government help, assistance, like food stamp and all the rest of them, living paycheck to paycheck, or needing food stamp was something that belonged to Black neighborhoods alone. Some folks even laughed at the stereotypes, repeating ignorant myths like Black people were lazy, dependent on welfare, or living off the system. But now the truth is out in the open and reality is knocking on people's door. Poverty has never been a Black issue. Poverty has always been an American issue, but many people ignored it until it started knocking in their own backyard, knocking on white suburb doors, like knocking at their dinner tables and knocking at their wallet. Hi guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for clicking when you saw this video. So I'm going to let the rest of the videos roll, then I'll come back with more commentary. Please do well to let me know what you all think in the comment section. Credit to original creators of this video. Please do well to like and subscribe. Let's go watch.
Somebody say that Black people weren't really affected by the Great Depression. We were not immune to the worst economic crisis the U.S. had seen up until that point. Not only were we affected, we were hit first. We were hit hardest. And we were left out of the recovery process. Let's talk facts. By 1932, half of Black Americans were unemployed. That's double the rate of white workers. In cities like Chicago and Atlanta, white workers demanded that Black employees be fired first to make room for other white job seekers. Even relief programs and soup kitchens turned Black families away. Or if they did take them, they gave them the bare minimum, while white families got full assistance. But here's the part they don't really talk about: how the effects of this still impact us today. The Great Depression created the modern wealth gap, right? After the Depression, the U.S. government poured money into home loans to help Americans recover. But Black people were locked out of that. Redlining ensured that Black neighborhoods were labeled as high risk, so banks refused to give Black families home loans. Today, only 44% of Black Americans own homes, compared to 74% of white Americans, because we were never given the same starting point. Generational wealth was stolen from the start. While white families got government aid, loans, and economic recovery programs, Black families got left behind. That's why even today, the median wealth of a white family is nearly 10 times that of a Black family. The financial setbacks that Black families faced weren't just about the Depression. They were about who was allowed to recover and who wasn't. No, Black people weren't unaffected by the Great Depression. We were targeted, excluded, and systematically denied the opportunities that helped white families rebuild. And the effects of that are still shaping who owns, who thrives, and who struggles today. They don't teach this for a reason. But history didn't just happen. It created the system that we're living in right now. And if we don't keep talking about it, they'll just keep pretending that it didn't exist.
Just finished a morning run, sweating bullets, but I have to say this while I'm thinking about it. Almost every week, I see someone ask the question, why are white men so angry? And while I cannot begin to expound on the many reasons why that might be, What I can say is this: I view all social problems through a lens of societal systems, because as a sociologist, that's what I'm trained to do. And here is the design flaw in systems of privilege. When you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, the privilege is actually what weakens you. The privilege makes you weak because when you socialize an entire group of people to believe that I exist, therefore I deserve. I exist, therefore I am entitled. I exist, therefore the path of prosperity should be laid out very cleanly ahead of me, and I don't have to work hard, and I don't have to struggle, and I don't have to dig deep. I just have to receive. Meanwhile, you are socializing all other groups to survive with less resources, with less privilege. And so as a byproduct of their survival, they are becoming adaptable, resilient, creative, resourceful. They are developing the muscle for survival that they subsequently turn into systems for success and prosperity. Meanwhile, the privileged group is not developing these systems. And when they start to see the disenfranchised group becoming stronger, gaining opportunities, building systems of success, rather than say, hey, maybe we ought to be doing that too, no. Privilege doubles down. Privilege digs deep into the well of anger and grievance and says, you are the reason why I can't be successful. You are taking opportunities away from me and my children and generations. And so now, rather than develop the muscle of resilience, what I'm going to do now is start taking privileges away from you. And now I'm going to start taking your resources, and now I'm going to start burning your house down in hopes that you will get back to where I think you ought to be, which is underneath me. Not realizing that the more you do that, the more privileges you take away, the more systems of success you try to dismantle, you are only making them more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, and more resourceful. So it becomes this Ouroboros, this snake eating its own tail, because the very system that you designed to uplift yourself is actually the one that is putting you far behind, because you never develop the muscle, the work ethic, the resilience, the innovation, and the creativity as the disenfranchised group.
When people ask me why I was such a diehard Trump supporter, this was the reason why. Because of this comment right here, I felt like this. I felt like that in 2024, that white men were the only people who were legally discriminated against. In fact, I'll take it a step further. It was the white, straight, Christian, conservative male that would be discriminated against in 2024 in the United States of America. We had tolerance for everyone else but us. And truth be told, it wasn't until I realized how ignorant and uneducated I truly was that I began to think and feel and live differently. Growing up in a society and a system that by design centers and caters white, straight, Christian males, anytime you see any other type of inclusivity, any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it will begin to feel like oppression. And that's sad that this is the truth about the world that we live in today. And people say all the time that if we just stop talking about racism, that it will go away. People believe that because they don't experience interpersonal racism, that it doesn't exist on an institutional or a systemic level. But it's because of comments like this that we know it's alive and well. People will be like, well, we don't have a white entertainment channel, or we don't have historically white colleges. We don't have a white history month. We don't have white-owned businesses. When literally whiteness has been the standard in this country since the birth of the nation. I remember when I first started seeing interracial commercials and I would get so mad. I'd be so triggered. And I'd say things to myself and to friends and family. I don't care what you do. I don't care about interracial dating, but why do they have to shove this down our throat? And the same thing with gay pride or trans talk. I would get so triggered. I don't care what you do, but why do you have to shove it down our throat? But could you imagine for 1 second being a member of one of these marginalized groups growing up in this country? What it must feel like to have whiteness or straightness or Christianity shoved down your throat every single second of the day. And then when you begin to question it or try to create a safe space for yourself, you're told to go live in another country if you don't like it, or stop being the victim, or don't blame the system. You need to take personal accountability. And this is the question I have for people who get upset about it, because I know a lot of people in my everyday life are still upset about it. Why are you so triggered? How hard is it to deconstruct and re-educate? And why are we so afraid to do so? Are we that insecure? Are we that fragile? Are we that mediocre that we cannot compete in a world that has a level playing field and equal opportunity for every single person? I mean, hell, if we really think about it, if we really want to get mad, we need to get mad at our ancestors. We had a 400-year head start, and many of us are still living in the trailer park. But for real though, why does inclusivity feel like oppression to us? Why do we get so triggered? Why do we think it's a zero-sum game? Why do we look at it as a piece of pie in which if somebody else gets a piece of the pie that we don't get our piece? And I have a very unpopular belief that I'm going to share with you, and I stand on it, and many people are going to be triggered by this. But in 2024, if you're white in America, you're racist, unless you've actively chosen to do the work to become less racist. But by default, if you're born into this system with our institutions, the way that we are taught, programmed, and conditioned, through no fault of your own, you have been taught and programmed to be racist. And this is why education is so important. And don't take it personal. I'm not attacking your character unless you willfully refuse to learn. I'm attacking your education and your beliefs. And I challenge you to become willing to see the world from a different perspective. That's all. That's simple. So ask yourself this question, one simple question. Are you up for the task?
Today, we are all watching something that was once hidden behind prejudice. More and more white families are facing the same economic struggles they once believed were only happening to black community. And the system they supported, the politicians they voted for, the cuts they applauded are now, eating into their own life. Let's make one thing clear. Poverty does not care about race. Bills don't ask what color you are. Rent doesn't care what culture you come from. Groceries don't, drop prices because your grandparents came from Europe. The system affects those at the bottom. And for a long time, many white Americans didn't think they were, or would ever be on the side, on the side where they have to, depend on any form of assistance from the government or anything. They believe poverty was a punishment for black communities, that they were safe because their race or because they believed they worked harder. They thought good pay, stable jobs, affordable healthcare, and more ownership were guaranteed for them. They thought America would always take care of them first. But now they're learning a lesson that black Americans understood long ago: when the government doesn't care about you, about poor people, it doesn't care about anyone, not even the ones who voted for it. Now, these folks tried to warn the country for decades. They said we need affordable health care. They said we need a strong safety net for the poor. We need, living wages. We need government support for working families. But many people didn't listen. Instead of joining the fight, they judged the fight. When, they said they marched for equality, some said they were complaining. When black folks, fought for civil rights, some said they were asking for too much. When they demanded healthcare for fair housing, some said they were taking advantage of the system. When black voices warned about inequality, many ignored them. Now, when people go to the grocery store and can barely afford bread and milk, now when medical bills are, just destroying families, when homelessness is rising in white communities, suddenly the system is no longer invisible. Poverty is not a black thing, and the irony is loud right now in lot of them's, mouth. For decades, the media showed poverty using pictures of, black folks, even though statistically, right, most poor people in America have always been palm colored. News, just so many people, showcasing different things that portray these other people as not as the people who are the ones suffering and all that. Suddenly they are realizing that the lazy people stereotype doesn't match their own struggles. Suddenly they are realizing that working 2 jobs and still drowning in bills is not a race thing, it's an economic trap. They are realizing that the system they help build doesn't protect them just because they are white, right? Now, black Americans have known this trap for generations. They learned how to, survive it, how to fight it, how to organize, how to build support within the community, build churches that feed the hungry, neighborhoods who share food, families that raise children together, activists who fought for rights that benefit everyone. Now, some white families are realizing they need that same unity. They need that same fight. They need that same, protection. But here's the twist. Black people have been fighting not just for themselves, but for the entire nation, even when the nation refused to stand with them. Every time black folks demand equality, they were fighting for protection. White people thought only they would need if they ever become poor, but they didn't imagine they could be at this point where everything had become so expensive. Everything that is happening right now, they didn't believe any of such would ever happen. And that's exactly what most of these creators today are pointing out, how most of them actually overlook the struggles and everything that black folks have been warning them about. And now it's now in the open. Here we are in the country where the poor are realizing they have more in common with each other than they ever had with the rich, where the working class is being crushed by people who don't care if you are black, brown, or white. As long as you're not wealthy, you are not in that class. And now that many, families, PAM families are finally experiencing the struggle, here's the question: will they actually learn? That's the question. Do you think they will get to that point where they will learn and stop voting against their own interests? So many people will still answer no. I believe that a lot of people will still not learn their lesson as much as possible, or will still continue to vote against their own interests, Well, guys, let me know what you all think, right? I would really love to read from you guys. Let me know what you all think in the comment section. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up so that more people can see it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support and for the love. God bless you all. Credit to the original creators of these videos, and see you all on my next. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.